Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's been 74 days since a fire broke out at 30 Tughlaq Crescent, which is in Delhi. The official bungalow of the then Delhi High Court Judge Justice Varma. It took almost a week for the first details of this incident to emerge and another few days for the actual pictures to come to light. While the fires were doused almost immediately, it is what emerged from the ruins that shook the country's conscience. Pictures that will forever be seared in public memory. Pictures of piles and piles of cash that lay burnt and half burnt inside a room being scanned by firefighters. Ever since then, it has been a game of smoke and mirrors. But today, I will clear the smoke and unravel the truth. Truth that has been established after a 33-day-long investigation by the three-judge panel constituted by the Supreme Court's Chief Justice of India at that time, Mr. Justice Sanjeev Khanna. After examining 55 witnesses, the truth has been chronicled in black and white and in a 64-page report, minus of course the annexure. And today, ladies and gentlemen, as government mulls impeachment of Justice Varma, with the process likely to start maybe as early as the upcoming monsoon session, I bring to you the sensational, never known before details of the investigation chronicled in the report of the three judges. This report is currently with the President of India and the Prime Minister, submitted by the former Chief Justice of India. But in the interest of truth, transparency and justice, and the right of citizens of India to know what really transpired, why should the judiciary not face the same questions the common man in the land face? Can law be different for different people? In the defense of truth, I will lay bare the findings for the people of this country who deserve to know the facts, who deserve to know the trust they repose in the Indian judiciary might have been belied by one, but the quest for truth trumps contempt shown by a few. So let's get down to the brass tacks. What was it that Justice Sheel Nagu, Justice G.S. Sandavalia and Justice Anu Shivaraman sought to probe? Well, these were the three judges who were named by the former Chief Justice to conduct the inquiry. The three key questions that Justice Varma was asked were: explain the presence of cash, explain the source of cash, and explain the removal of cash. I have scrupulously scanned the documents, all 64 pages of it, and will decode for you the case bit by bit, argument by argument, witness report by witness report. Each one of those details for you, the viewer, for you, the citizens of India who deserve to know the truth. And that today is the only defense that I have in bringing to you details of this report. And tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I also want to tell you what we are breaking first. Number one breaking news, which is in the report, says clearly over here, as government mulls this impeachment, we've seen the storeroom. This storeroom was accessible to all, said Justice Varma. The storeroom is used by all and sundry was the contention. Well, the report says witnesses, the door always was locked and padlocked. Not true that it was open to everybody. The storeroom was used by all and sundry. Key to lock was accessible only to the residents of the house. No possibility of access sans permission. So only the residents of the house could give permission to open this outhouse room, the storeroom where the sacks of cash were found. This is what witnesses have told. In fact, this also goes on to the next part. The next part, where the contention was no cash or currency was found at the site. That was the contention. I don't know. How did it come there? Well, it was overruled by the report. It was seen and recorded by fire and police officials. This is what the committee has found. The debris was burnt, articles were removed. And the debris consisted of not just sacks of notes that were present, it was also of many other household goods that were stolen. Long-time aides won't contradict Varma was something that the committee noted, because all the people working at home, and there were 16 people working at home who were questioned. 16 people, helps of various kinds in the 6 servant quarters that were there. 16 people were questioned, and the report chronicles each of their deposition. Forensic probe verifies authenticity. Call detail records, all the messages, CDRs, everything has been examined, and that's what the report has concluded. Let's now look at this brings us to the most damning part of the probe report. Well, the details in this report clearly show us, and these completely rip apart Justice Varma's already very fragile line of defense. Video evidence of his staff's presence and complicity. Let's first see the video. This has been shot by one of the first responders on the intervening night of 14th and 15th of March. Take a look at this video.
महात्मा गांधी में आग लग रही है भाई। महात्मा गांधी में आग लग रही है भाई। महात्मा गांधी में आग लग रही है भाई।
Did you hear? महात्मा गांधी में आग लग गई, राहिल। महात्मा गांधी में आग लग गई, Rahil. And there is a word called Rahil. Now, the video captures a person calling for Rahil. Proves that staff at the spot saw the burnt cash. And Rahil is a person who works in the house of the said judge, Justice Varma. That is what the committee has come to the conclusion. And who was calling out to Rahil? Well, the other person who is probably there at the entrance and calling out to Rahil, and you can see a video, phone video being recorded by the firemen. It was R.S. Karki, Justice Varma's private secretary, the man who's known to have first called up the judge, also gave continuous reports to the judge through the night, because the judge was not present in Delhi. It was a holy holiday and he was in Bhopal. R.S. Karki, the private secretary, present, and Mohammad Rahil, Justice Varma's domestic staff, were both present. So the fact that nobody from the family or from the household had seen, there were only police or fire officials, that is a contention that was made by Justice Varma in his first defense. In his first defense to the Chief Justice of the Delhi High Court, Justice Upadhyay, the staff was at the spot. The calling out of Rahil is heard in this video, and they clearly were there when the burnt cash. Mahatma Gandhi jal rahe hain bhai. Ladies and gentlemen, this decoding and the word that was uttered clearly, shows and demolishes Justice Varma's defense. R.S. Karki, also present over there, shows that if these people were watching, were looking, why did Justice Varma depose and explain that there was nobody from the house? However, Rahil, after first saying he was present, later retracted his statement. Let me also tell you about the contentions and counters, clearly showing that the odds are stacked against Justice Varma. The probe of the probity. Paragraphs 78, 79 and 80 of the 64-page report, which is the real conclusion, where the signatures of the three said judges, Justice Sheel Nagu, who was the chairman of the committee, the other two, the members, I've seen their signatures with my own eyes. And that verdict says that the cash was found in Justice Varma's storeroom. So all the denials really don't cut any ice. Verdict says that. Then the verdict goes on to also say that access in active control of the judge and the family of the judge, so he cannot plead ignorance. Burnt cash was removed from the storeroom the next morning. These were the three questions the committee had to give answers to. And it also says that the cash was removed by those within the house, the staff within the house, not the police, not the firemen. Call to initiate proceedings for removal of Justice Varma, very much part of this conclusion. Now, after this report was submitted to the Chief Justice of India on the 3rd of May, he wrote to Justice Varma the next day, giving him the option to either resign or take voluntary retirement. However, 2 days later, Justice Varma responded on the 6th of May by calling the findings perverse and the probe unfair. This is exactly how it played out. Probe panel report on the May 3rd. May 4th was the action by Chief Justice, former Chief Justice now, Sanjeev Khanna, who wrote to Justice Varma to resign or take voluntary retirement. Well, just take voluntary retirement. Not something that you and I would be allowed to do. But never mind, it was recommended either resign or take voluntary retirement. And then on May 6th, Justice Varma responds, calls the probe unfair and the findings perverse. This is what he responded in his 6-page response that was given. Well, joining me on the News Hour tonight, Harish Salve, legal, former Solicitor General. And Harish Salve, the report, 64 pages of which I have actually accessed, seen the signatures of the 3 judges. And I want to ask you because in conclusion, well, the report reads, from the aforesaid enumerated values of judicial life, it is obvious that all the virtues expected from a judge are founded upon the concept of probity. Probity qua a judge is measured by yardstick, which is much more stringent than the probity expected of a civil post holder. But that probity, they say, it erodes the trust which needs to be now viewed very, very stringently. How do you respond to the findings of the committee?
Can I do some plain talking?
Absolutely, always.
What you just read sounds like so much rhetoric. The judgment of the Supreme Court in Ramaswamy's case only laid down a marker because the court was trying to balance applying criminal law to judges where you would leave them exposed to political pressure, you leave them exposed to disgruntled litigants. So a measure of protection for the judges, but not to place the judges above the law. So they said you must have the CJ as permission. Now, this is a classic case. Lord Denning had once used a very nice expression for a judgment. He said, if you take a wrong turn and keep driving, you go off the cliff. This is a case of, I said this earlier and I've said this now. This is a case of taking a wrong turn and now we have driven off the cliff. When this video reached the Chief Justice, he should have weighed what would he have done if a video like this of a minister had been received and an FIR not been registered. You would have had the Supreme Court up in flames, SIT appointed, BIT appointed, FIT appointed, CIT appointed, all sorts of things appointed, judicial probe, holding the executive to account, etc. Haven't we seen that in the past? On a CAG report, people have been arrested. Now, here is a live video. Is this not good enough case to call the police and say, if this is true, it's a violation of the Prevention of Corruption Act. Register a preliminary inquiry report. Discreetly, please. It's a High Court judge. Go and do your inquiry discreetly. But if you find a good enough case to register a complaint, come to us, we'll have a look and then register the complaint. Simple. Why are you in a situation where a sitting judge of a court calls 3 Chief Justices' report perverse? What will the litigant feel? When it comes to your own, you have different standards. So, this is really, I'm very disappointed at this turn of events. That's all that I can say. All the institutions are under a lot of scrutiny, and I'll be failing in my duty to say the high stature of the judiciary has in recent times come under question. Incidents like this don't really happen.
Mr. Harish Salve, the former Chief Justice, who was still the Chief Justice when he wrote the letter to Justice Varma, clearly said that I advise the judge concerned to resign or seek voluntary retirement. In case the judge concerned does not accept the advice, proceed to intimate the President and the Prime Minister of India the findings of the three-member committee warranting initiation of proceedings for removal. And he's given a deadline that I'm retiring, I'm laying down office. If you do not respond to me, I will, inform the President and the Prime Minister. But there is absolutely no case that has been made to register an FIR or look at the process of justice in terms of a criminal act of this kind.
Navika, when the 2G report was published, it was just the CAG findings of an accountant. How long did it take the Supreme Court to get upset saying, why isn't a criminal case being registered? Or did they advise the minister, why don't you resign and go home? Here you have a report of 3 judges, 3 chief justices. What's the solution? Resign and go home? Would they be happy if a minister caught with his hand in the till? And that's the allegation. I don't know if it's true or false. I have not read the report. I'm going by what you said, and I believe what you say. If this is the report, then I dare say, what is the question of resigning and going away? Would that be acceptable for a politician, or would you and your colleagues on the different electronic channels be screaming murder by now if a minister who had been caught with cash burning in his house had been allowed to resign and go? And why do we have different standards for judges? Should we have higher standards or lower standards? That's why what the postscript which you were reading, I said, I'm sorry to say, to me, sounds like a bit of rhetoric. But
Mr. Harish Salve, I'm not saying any of this from, from my side. I have noted the contents of the report, and in my defense, I can only say that as a journalist, as a member of the Fourth Estate, to my mind, it is important to bring out the truth for the citizens. That is the duty that falls upon me. The report, in its final paragraph, says, this committee thus holds the cash money was found in the storeroom of 30 Tughlaq Crescent, New Delhi, officially occupied by Justice Varma. More so, the access to the storeroom has been found to be within the covert or active control of Justice Varma and his family members, and that by way of strong inferential evidence, it is established that the burnt cash stroke money was got removed from the storeroom during the wee hours of 15th March 2025 from Tughlaq Crescent. Keeping in view the direct and electronic evidence on record, this committee is firmly of the view that there is sufficient substance in the allegations, and the misconduct found proved is serious enough to call for initiation of proceedings of removal of Justice Yashwant Varma, Judge of the Allahabad High Court. This is not a figment of my imagination.
No. I didn't suggest that for a moment. I just said I've not read the report, but I go by what you say because you're an extremely responsible journalist and you're reading. I have comments, as I said, on 2 layers. First of all, you didn't need a 3 judges committee, because when you had electronic evidence like this, it should straight away have been given to an agency which has expertise in investigation, the CBI. They could have been asked to do a preliminary inquiry, come back to the Chief Justice, and with the clearance that if the preliminary inquiry shows the commission of an offense, the law will follow its course. The Supreme Court would have looked so strong, saying that be so high you are, howsoever high you may be, the law is above you, including if you are one of our own. But they didn't do that. They appointed a committee. Now the committee has indicted him as the operative paras you just read. If a committee had indicted a minister, would you have asked him to resign? And if you had asked a minister who's been indicted by a committee to resign, if some such thing had happened, by now you and your colleagues on electronic channels would have been scheming murder at the government, right? That's my point.
No, but why only talk about ministers and judges? What about the common man? If this kind of cash was found in our house, a journalist's house,
yes,
we would be behind bars.
No, but we are lesser mortals. We are lesser mortals.
Okay.
In our great democracy, we are clearly lesser mortals. I'm talking of even ministers. If something had been found, even in a, and you know, when the Supreme Court takes on this mantle, and the executive, there's another reason, but levity apart, there's another reason why I mentioned minister. They are a co-equal institution. Let's never forget. The three branches of government are the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. If cash had been found in the house of a member of parliament, if cash had been found in the house of a minister, they are co-equal branches of government. What standards of rule of law would have been applied? Have the same standard been applied here? And if they haven't, has the court done itself proud? That's my point.
Well, Mr. Harish Salve, I also want to ask you, because the committee also talks about the FIR and the Panchnama, and it says there is no dispute regarding this aspect, that there were household articles which were kept in the storeroom, which is consistent stand of the household staff, immediate family. The presence of a liquor cabinet located close to the switch box is also a matter of record, which has been noticed by the committee in its spot inspection. And it is common knowledge that liquor is highly volatile liquid, and bottles have been affected by the fire, and which also increased the fire. It says the reasons as to why the police did not choose to initiate any investigation or lodge an FIR on account of sensitivity of the issue and lack of information of any crime scene and the absence of Justice Varma. The legal position as such regarding of lodging an FIR against a sitting judge was given. Also, the ambit of the committee is not to find fault with the action or inaction of the fire personnel or police personnel. So are questions not going to be asked about this?
No, I'm sorry. I'm telling you, as they have said, as the Ramaswamy judgment says, you cannot order an investigation into a sitting judge without a nod of the CJI. That is why the government, I believe, forwarded all this to the CJI saying, what, my lord, do you want us to do? He and his committee of judges should have seen the videos and taken a call. And in my humble view, they took the wrong call. According to me, even a committee of inquiry was not required. But they had a committee of inquiry. After having ordered a committee of inquiry which has passed this, I would say prima facie, they have found him guilty. Let's not go higher, because you don't need a higher standard. Prima facie, they have found him guilty. That's the standard for registering an FIR. You don't even need prima facie guilt. You need the suspicion of the commission of an offense. Here they found him prima facie guilty. So in law, the standard has been crossed. And all I'm saying is today, when there is so much debate about the judiciary, Article 142, the scope of powers, etc., 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 the judiciary is on front page. And rightly so, in a vibrant democracy, no institution of governance is free from public scrutiny. I think Indian democracy has matured to that level. Even the judges are not free from public scrutiny. If that is so, this was an occasion that the Supreme Court could have taken a position to show that even if you're a judge, even if you're one of us, how so high you may be, the law is above you. The rule of law must prevail. I'm sorry, this standard has not, in my very humble view, the asking him to resign and go away is not something which is acceptable.
Well, but even that hasn't happened, Harish Salve. Would justice ever be done? Public scrutiny that you hold in high regard, will it come to naught?
As they say, watch the space. I'm sure if people like you keep exposing this, at some point, somebody will turn.
Well, let's hope. Let's hope for the best, and let's hope that finally justice is done for the sake of 140 crore people to continue to maintain their faith in the judiciary. It is important that action needs to be demonstrated. Thank you very much, Harish Salve, for joining me on the News Hour tonight. As always, direct and absolutely calling a spade a spade.